The University of Lethbridge has a new Canada Research Chair thanks to $311 million in funding announced by the Government of Canada's CRC program. Dr. Tiffany Heinbull-Preet is an assistant professor in the Department of Sociology at the university and a member of the Blood Tribe. She has been named a Tier 2 Canada Research Chair in Indigenous Resiliency, and she joins me now via Zoom. Dr. Heinbull-Preet, what made you want to pursue this area of research?
As a Blackfoot person, I've been taught that balance is the mission of the Siksikaitsitapi, and that means Blackfoot Confederacy. And unfortunately, colonization has disrupted this balance that we have maintained in our lives. And so the colonial practices and policies that have led to the creation of negative outcomes for Indigenous peoples, including the forced relocation onto reserves, the stolen children era, including the residential school and the 60 scoops, as well as the current welfare system. And so these practices and policies have created an imbalance in Indigenous people's lives. And so with the CRC appointment, I want to be able to use it as a way to reinforce and investigate the ways that communities, specifically within Blackfoot Confederacy, are currently using, renewing, and adapting traditional teachings of resilience.
And we as Canadians are learning of the intergenerational trauma that has stemmed from Canada's past towards our Indigenous people. So can you explain to us how your research will address that and what outcome you're hoping for?
My current program of work revolves around the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada's calls to action. And so with the CRC, I plan to continue working in this area. And so there's a focus on the impacts of the colonial education system on Indigenous children and families, and how this trauma has been inflicted through the loss of language, cultural practices, the physical, emotional, sexual, and spiritual abuse that happened in these colonial institutions. And I think it's really important to engage in truth-telling and to better educate ourselves as Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples within Canada about what our colonial history has been, that has been whitewashed in our education system. And I think we need to understand what has happened to us as Indigenous peoples so that we can be in a better position to heal. And so I want to be able to share the findings that come out of this phase of the research and then work on building relationships and partnerships with Indigenous community members who are interested in being a part of this project to co-create a resiliency model that is grounded in our Indigenous knowledges.
That was Dr. Tiffany Heinbull-Preet, Canadian Research Chair in Indigenous Resiliency and Assistant Sociology Professor at the University of Lethbridge.